Bob Van Rossum, president of Market Pro, and we've been doing marketing executive search for 25 years. And what's really interesting in that process is we've learned that it's not necessarily the best candidate that gets the job, it's the best interviewer. And when you get to the level that we work at, right, which is director level and above marketing specific roles, and about half of what we do is that CMO role. It could be Chief Marketing Officer at a bigger organization, it could be VP of Marketing at a smaller organization, but it's the top marketing job. It's the marketing job that reports to a non-marketer, typically the CEO. And really at that level, how you interview is so important. And interviewing is not necessarily something that is practiced by most people. Hopefully the best people don't practice interviewing very often. So here are kind of 4 things I want you to think about. You're interviewing for VP of Marketing, Chief Marketing Officer, the top marketing gig within the organization. How do you separate yourself from the competition? And the interesting thing about interviewing, which is a competition, is you can't see them, right? Your competition's invisible. So now we're gonna work to separate ourselves from those individuals. So number 1 way that you're gonna be able to separate yourself from others is, can you get the organization globally, but specifically the hiring manager, to visualize and see the future with you in the role? And that is something that you'll have to be very methodical about in the process, because you're going to get asked questions around what's your history, what's your performance, what have you accomplished, all those things that you expect, right? But now, how do we turn the discussion from that to, okay, you understand their growth goals and you ask questions about that. You understand where they want to be 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years from now. And how can you turn the discussion now to be around that and around marketing strategy, marketing, digital transformation? What can you do to help the organization grow? And how can you get them to see how things can be different within marketing with you as the leader? And if you can get them to visualize that and you get them to see, wow, with this individual running marketing, we're really going to be in a much different place than we are today. Now you got a real shot at the role. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you really, really want to be a chief marketing officer, have the top marketing gig within the organization, you're going to have to help them see your leadership and that you have the ability to lead a team, grow a team, hire a team. All those things are going to be very important. And interestingly, you may or may not get good questions about that. So you've got to be able to do it anyway. So demonstrate where you've hired successfully. Sometimes that can be a new role, sometimes that could be you had to replace somebody. It's really not that important, but you're going to have examples of where you hired somebody who ultimately came in and exceeded expectations, and preferably who you were able to promote at some point in time because you hired somebody that was good enough to earn that. Right? The other thing is growing a team. And you may need to hire new people as the CMO, but you want to make the existing team as valuable as possible. And there may be people there who are much better and have much more skills than they've been able to show. And so what are you going to do to pull that out? What are examples in the past of where you have been able to mentor individuals to grow past the role they were in? What are examples in the past where you have helped from a training perspective, right? We like to talk about lifelong learners. Are the people on your team learning and growing and becoming better and adding more value to the organization? And as a result, also growing their own careers. And are you the type of leader that's raising people up from that perspective? And can you demonstrate that? All right, so number 3 thing that's really important for you to be able to share with the interview panel, and specifically the CEO, the hiring manager, throughout the interview process is, are you someone who is a team player? Are you someone who's good at collaborating cross-functionally? Are you someone that is going to look at things from an organizational perspective and not a me perspective? Right? And that can be difficult because you're asked all those me questions in the interview process. And the way to do that really effectively is you're going to initially interview with likely the CEO. Could be head of HR with them. Hopefully, though, the CEO or the hiring manager is your first interview. Then you'll ultimately likely interview with peers, so the head of finance, head of sales, and head of operations. And then you're going to end up back with the hiring manager. And this is the key thing for that interview. How do you weave in ideas and learnings and things you heard from your peers to bring up ideas and thoughts for the CEO, right? So when I was speaking to Jim in finance, he talked about this as an ROI metric that you guys are using. Have you thought instead about going in this direction? Or I spoke to Jennifer in sales, and she was talking about how we're enabling the sales force today, and here are some thoughts that I have on how we can raise that up. Right? But by doing that, it shows a couple things. One, it shows you're listening to your peers, and your goal is to collaborate, and that you're going to do a good job of pulling information together from different parts of the organization to make sure that you have what you need to be successful, and that you're not going in there kind of with a Lone Ranger mentality, which it's unlikely that you would, but it's actually really easy to communicate that you are in the interview process. And the reason is you get asked a lot of questions that are, what did you do? Where were you successful? How did you help your organization win? And when you answer those questions with I, which is what you were set up to do, sometimes if you're not careful, you can come across as someone that is about yourself and not the team. So this is really a way of separating yourself and saying, hey, I'm someone who collaborates cross-functionally really well. I'm someone who pulls ideas in from my peers, and I'm someone who uses that institutional knowledge that others have that I don't have yet to help raise the game. So number 4 way that you can separate yourself from the competition in interview process is the questions you ask. And these are really important, right? So 1, you want to make sure that you're asking the right question to the right audience. And that sounds simple, but you'd be amazed at how many times we see candidates get this wrong. So there are ROI and finance and budget questions you can ask finance that you're not going to ask HR, right? And there can be culture questions and organizational development questions that you can ask HR that you're not going to probably ask the head of sales. And there's revenue goal questions and how you're going to collaborate with the head of sales questions that you can ask directly to them. But it's amazing to me how many times we get individuals asking the right questions to the wrong person. So make sure that you're aligning questions with the role you're asking them of. And the second part of the question thing is really make sure that the questions you ask open dialogue. So you don't want to ask yes/no questions. You don't want to ask questions that lead them to a dead end kind of answer. You want to ask them questions that get them thinking and get them answering, and then your feedback from there raises the conversation out of an interview and into a business discussion. And the more you can leave interview mode and the more you enter business discussion mode, the better your chances are of actually getting the role.